Progressive Era was a reform movement that began in the early 20th century. It was a time to rethink labor, create social and economic equality, and purify the government. During this time, we see an extreme economic growth fueled by the rapid increase in industrialization. People are moving to the cities in search of new jobs, which indirectly causes slums, poverty, and unfair working conditions. The progressive movement looked to redistribute wealth and to correct the downfalls brought by industrialization.
The first time we really see public discouragement of alcohol is when the temperance movement comes about in the 1830s. There was this thought that poverty and illness was directly related to alcoholism. In groups like the Anti-Saloon League and the Christian temperance unions, strong beliefs about liquor became more apparent. The Anti-Saloon League was founded in 1893 in Overlong, Ohio. It became a national organization after 1895 when it spread to churches across the United States working towards prohibition. It worked hand in hand with the Women's Christian Temperance Union, which was founded in Cleveland, Ohio in 1874. It formed out of the Women's Crusade when women realized they could make a change if they band together. It started with housewives begging that saloons stop the sale of liquor to pushing alcohol out of hundreds of communities.
Nothing so needs reforming as other people's habits. Fanatics will never learn that, though it be written in letters of gold across the sky. It is the prohibition that makes anything precious. Mark Twain.
As liquor became more illegal, it seemed that the people wanted it even more. We start to think of brewers in their fight against the Prohibition movement. One brewer in particular comes to mind, Adolphus Busch, born in Germany, came to the U.S. in search for economic stability and opportunity. He became part of the brewing business in 1857 and joined up with his father-in-law to do something no one had done before, package bottles of beer for shipment. As the Prohibition movement came to be a serious issue for brewing companies, Adolphus was the first to stand up and fight for his business and his dream. Brewers looked up to Adolphus and joined up with a group called the German-American Alliance, which was formed to keep their culture, but was soon enough turned into an anti-prohibition army of over 2 million, who said that drinking was part of their culture. Although they put up a fight, the Prohibition movement was too much, and so Adolphus and his Budweiser business was in search for new ways to make profit, and the people were forced to search for new ways to get their booze.
In January of 1919, all states had ratified the 18th Amendment, and at first, the statistics proved the amendment a great success. Liquor consumption dropped, arrests for drunkenness fell, and the price for illegal alcohol rose higher than the average worker could afford. However, as the statistics began to rise and rise, they began to realize the 18th Amendment was really more of an ideal than a reality. Whether alcohol was illegal or not, there was a market for it. The 18th Amendment, at first, just upped the price of alcohol, and in doing so, made civilians criminals and criminals kings. Bootleggers were people who took on the profession of importing and selling alcohol during Prohibition. Some of the largest ports were in Miami. The alcohol would get shipped in and immediately transferred into cars, who would then drive them to a warehouse where they would be shipped north under the cover of tomatoes or grapefruits. Seeing that the amendment was ineffective, Congress passed the Volstead Acts in late 1919. The Volstead Acts, often known as the National Prohibition Act, were put in place to greater the execution of the amendment. However, it left a lot of room for civilian abuse. For example, under the Volstead Acts, federal agents had the rights to investigate and prosecute any alcoholic violation they suspected. Now keep in mind, they defined an intoxicating beverage as having 0.5% alcoholic content. This often resulted in police raids of nightclubs and extreme population of increase in the prison. During the Prohibition, many people viewed the government as a socialist power. Being a socialistic power means that distribution and exchange should be owned or regulated by the government. The United States reflects socialist qualities in the Prohibition by trying to control an aspect of society to create a more safe society, trying to create a utopia. Although the morals and reasoning behind Prohibition was respectable, inevitably it began to fail. People began to truly despise and blame Prohibition for disrespect and disregard to the law. Furthermore, it created organized crime, and it made the criminal not just well paid, but well liked. police, courts, and the penal system could not keep up with the overwhelming number of offenders. Even more so, it was phenomenally expensive. The cost of enforcement and the loss on tax revenue cost the government billions.
It seemed that liquor had somehow won, and now we were left with a presidential campaign at hand, with alcohol on the line. As part of his campaign, Franklin D. Roosevelt pledged to end the 18th Amendment, and the people responded. In 1932, he was elected. In February of the next year, Congress adopted the 21st Amendment, ratifying the 18th Amendment and the Volstead Acts almost 14 years after they had been put in place. Should drinking be illegal? This question may seem absurd, but it wasn't too long ago when this question was topic of every discussion. Prohibition was a national movement lasting over a decade, affecting families and social affairs. It was the decision made to exert alcohol from being handled anywhere in the United States. Prohibition became a game. It pinned strict religion against a culture founded around drinking, and the love of a housewife against the social gatherings of a husband. We are left to question whether this could be called a religious movement, and if there was really a sense of separation of church and state. Prohibition brought about some of the most startling crime rates we had seen so far, and the profits gained by bootleggers was tremendous. The government was left in a hole of debt and a loss of respect and structure. We were left with one decision, and that was to ratify the 18th Amendment and end prohibition for good. And now it was time to rebuild. Although crime rates went up and prohibition was a fail, the United States managed to come out with something profitable: states' rights. There was no more suffocating federal blanket, but there were rights and laws left up for the states to decide. And so, the progressive era continued. And now, decades later, we are faced with what some would call a similar circumstance. Are you 420 friendly?